Hello everyone, thank you for your patience while we had to wait for our neighborhood noise to stop this morning. I certainly couldn't record our baking video with that background noise on the go. So I'm sure you're all quite excited for our caramel apple scones, so let's get started, shall we? First of all, let me tell you that this recipe comes from a new release book this week called Bake Off. Now you have to find out what happens in the Bake Off. The author Cori Cooper has all the details on her Instagram page if you'd like to have a look. I will also have a link for you down below in the comments. Alright, let's get started with our caramel apple scones recipe. I already have 2.5 cups of flour in my jug. I have the recipe here for you, but I will also put it in the comments for you after we've loaded it up for you. In the flour we're going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I have my teaspoon here, sprinkle it into the flour. There it is, 1 teaspoon into the flour, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just 1/2 teaspoon. There we go, not too much. You see my 1/2 teaspoon of salt? There we go, into the flour and baking powder. Now I've got the instructions on the back, let me just make sure. Flour, baking powder, sugar and salt. For the sugar we need 1/4 cup. I've got that already measured out for us. 1/4 cup of sugar into the flour. Now the important thing is to use the whisk. Remember how we've always spoken about a whisk removing any lumps? Well, it's the same with dry ingredients like flour, sugar, salt and baking powder. You still don't want any lumps in that. So we just give it a stir with the whisk to get rid of any lumps. There we go. Now in the book Bake Off, there's quite a bit of magic that happens in that kitchen with Kat, who is the mysterious baker. You'll have to find out for yourself in the story. So once we have our dry ingredients whisked, we need to grate the butter. Now this is where I made a big mistake. I've had mine in the freezer so it can go hard for me to grate, and I've got my grater here ready, but I didn't use butter. I used margarine spread, so I can't grate it because it didn't go very hard. So I'm going to chop mine up into pieces. It's important that you don't melt your butter. You don't want melted butter. Melted butter makes your scones pasty. Pasty is bad, flaky is good. We want flaky. I learned that from Kat in Cori's book. So I'm going to chop my margarine spread into small pieces, and hopefully that will make the pastry flaky and not pasty, because we don't want pasty. From what I understand, it's just the melted butter that makes it pasty. So I'll chop off the tops and put them in. There we go. Oh, use my knife. Chop off in half again. Use the knife. Whoops. And hopefully those pieces all stay chopped. Right, now the instructions say to grate the flakes of butter, and then just to I guess blend it with a bit of flour. So you can see my margarine pieces are coated in a little bit of the flour. Then we get to add in the apples, chopped apples. I used canned apples. It's 1 cup of chopped apples into the mix, and pecans, chopped pecans. Now I really like pecans, so I've chopped mine quite coarsely, not very fine. So that's 1/2 cup of pecans. Doesn't look like 1/2 cup because I had to use a bigger one because I had the butter in a 1/2 cup. So there we go. Now with the apples and the pecans, we're just going to stir them to combine. Okay? Now, Kat and Cori said to have your elbow up so you can give them a good stirring to make sure all the ingredients are combining beautifully. And then once they've combined, you get to use your hands to make a beautiful big crater in the middle of the dough. But my margarine pieces are still in cubes, so I'm just going to combine them beautifully until the cubes make flaky pastry. Now, Cori and Kat, if I've made any mistakes with your recipe, I do apologize. Feel free to correct me in the comments, and I might even try again. Like I've always said from the beginning, I'm no expert baker. I'm just a foodie lover who loves to try new recipes and to enjoy them. So there we are, our dough is starting to look nice and flaky in my opinion. Stirring in the cubes of butter and the chopped apple and the chopped pecans and of course our flour, salt, sugar and baking powder. Now, very soon we're going to be able to make our well in the middle. I think this is the part where I get to use my fingers, so I will show you the dough once I've squished it together nicely. Just combining the flour and the apples and pecans, and then we're going to make a well in the middle. I'll show you that. Oh, I forgot a very important step. Can you see what's sticking to my hands? All the dough. Now, it very clearly states in the recipe that you're supposed to coat your fingers with flour so that the dough doesn't stick to them. So, please remember that step, boys and girls. And I promise I did wash my hands before I started baking. So, when you're going to be serving food or baking food or using your hands to mix, please remember to wash your hands first. Alright, so now I've got a nice deep well in the middle there, and into that well goes our milk. I'll show you. Oh, try and get all the dough with my fingers. Alright, in the middle I've made a nice well. Can you see that? And then I'm going to pour in, let me turn this over with my dirty fingers. How much milk did we need? Half a cup of milk. Alright, milk. Oh, half a cup. I've poured a whole cup into here, so let me just pour some out. There you can see my cup measure on my jug. So let me just make sure I've got that right. Half a cup of milk, yes. I need to pour some of it out and make sure I've got a half a cup of milk. There we go, there's my half measure. Half a cup of milk into the well, and then that's when I'm supposed to use my hands. So now I think with the milk in there, probably quite important that I put the flour on my fingers. That's good. This hand, there we go. I think I might give this hand some more flour. Alright, now I'm going to combine that dough with the milk, and then we'll get the scone dough that we want. And this is something else I learned with this recipe. I didn't know that we have to pat the dough down into a round, like a pizza. I didn't know that. Because it's called caramel apple scones, I kind of thought it was like individual round scones, but they're not. You roll the dough into a triangle. I've got my pizza. I've actually used a pizza tray ready with the baking paper. And then we're going to cut it into 8 triangles, just partially cut, not all the way through, because you still want them to stick together like nice fresh bread. Whoa, this dough is really sticky. Okay, I think I might just finish the rest of that flour into the dough to take away some of the stickiness. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's supposed to be very sticky. Oh gosh, I feel like I've got creepy hands. Alright, I've only got a little bit of flour in here, so it's no point measuring it because that's all I've got left. So pretty well timed. There we go, into the flour it goes. Okay. Now, I think I really need to wash my hands. We are running a little bit out of time. I have 10 minutes on my recording device before our time runs out. So, I just give my hands a little bit of a quick wash in my sink right next to you here. You can hear the water running as I wash my hands. Hopefully your dough doesn't end up as sticky as mine. And maybe when I make it a second time I'll figure out, oh, I know what I did wrong. It's the margarine, right? It's supposed to have had the butter. Okie dokes. So now we put it onto our round tray with the baking paper on. I think I'm going to try and just turn it upside down. There we go. Beautiful. 2 to 3 inches thick. So it's not flat like thin pizza. It's nice and thick. And then you cut it into your 8 triangles. Partially cut it. And into the oven it goes. And then, when it comes out, I'll be sure to share the photo before I finish all the slices. So, thank you for joining me, and I do hope you enjoy your caramel apple scones. Before I go, let me also just remind you that I have the caramel sauce that I bought, but it's important that you only pour the caramel sauce on once the scones have cooled down. So I'm going to pop them in the oven and I'll be back when they're fully baked. 15 to 20 minutes in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius. Oh my goodness. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.